So here's another name I'm going to drop, Mike. Howard Stern.
Howard Stern, there you go. Well, listen, it's funny you mentioned Howard Stern because you and I were invited. By the way, let me do a preemptive apology here. I'm just getting over the flu. I have a bit of laryngitis from all the coughing and hacking and all the details. But,
you sound good, though, yeah. But anyway,
okay.
Back to
you and I were invited guests on the Howard Stern show, by the way, in the same vein as Dr. Fraser Crane was an invited guest to his parents' wedding.
Yeah,
you know, because his mother was already anyway. You have to be a Dr. Fraser Crane show.
I am, and I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right,
yes.
Right, but you and I were invited guests on the Howard Stern show. I did not hear it because.
So if I tell our audience Howard Stern knows my name and has used my name, then there are people in the audience going, Gallups is lying again. But no, I would be telling the truth, right?
Absolutely. We're getting reports, people who do still listen to the Howard Stern show.
I was going to say
they were listening to Stern and Robin and all the gang over there talking about this. These sexual assaults that are going on and so on. And then they played a clip from Freedom Friday where you and I were talking about the inverse side of this. Now, we never ever said that women are responsible for their own rape and assault.
As a matter of fact, we both made it clear that we have never said that, nor do we believe that. Not one iota do we believe that. But go ahead.
Well, we're talking about the scientific end of things here, wherein women are responsible for this involuntary surge of chemicals in a man's brain whenever they see a woman sexually clad or partially clad or naked or whatever. I mean, we're just created that way. That's how we're made, and women should start covering up. Not that men aren't responsible for how they react to this sort of thing that they're seeing, but that women should. And really, it's a separate topic altogether.
Yes, it is.
Women know that this is happening. That's why almost all porn is geared towards men, and the sexually explicit nature of TV shows and movies. That's all geared toward getting men to the box
advertising, Hollywood. I mean, you go down the list. Why is it? Why is sex sells? Where did that come from? And what do they mean by that? Well, primarily they meant female sex. To the male's cells. Now, it goes the other way, too, but not nearly as much. Human physiology tells us that. And so after you and I did that show, it was very balanced. We love the women of this world. We are not women haters. When we say they should cover up, we don't mean wearing burqas and all of that. We just mean just be modest. That's what the Word of God says. Just be careful. Men should too, by the way. But we were talking about it during all that Me Too stuff, and 40 years back, somebody said, well, he looked at me wrong or touched me wrong or whatever. Yeah. Okay, yeah. And if somebody commits a criminal act against a woman or vice versa or whatever, then they need to pay for it. But press a charge. Don't just make an accusation. That's what we were talking about. And so I'm sure Howard Stern just perverted and twisted that all out of context. I'm sure.
Well, it's a 4-hour show, and the people that came to me and said, Mike, I couldn't believe it. Like, I'm listening to Howard Stern. Next thing I know, I hear your voice being interviewed by this guy named Carl Gallups. Because these people are not associated with me in ministry or anything that I do. They just came up to me because I know them professionally. He wants to say, Mike, what's going on? You and this Carl Gallups guy were on the Howard Stern show. I said, really? Is that right? Yeah, it was on such and such a day and so on. It's a 4-hour show, and to be honest with you, Carl, I didn't have the time.
Oh no, I didn't go either. Yeah.
But the reports that I heard were that Stern, they played about 10 minutes of our segments, and were very fair contextually. They were very fair. Of course, they mocked and ridiculed us for our stance on it.
Yeah, well, Howard Stern would, because he delights in having naked women into his studio and sex talks with them. In any other place, he would maybe go to jail for what he does. So, of course, he would think that he would disparage us. Of course, he would disagree with us.
Well, amazingly, Carl, back 20, 25 years ago, Stern was in Canadian markets in Toronto and the bigger cities, and he was so foul, he so disturbed Canadian intricacies that they banned him from the airways in Canada.
Yeah.
Which may not happen today, but 20, 25 years ago, he was so out there that the Canadian government banned him from the airways, which is kind of shocking, really, when you think about how liberal Canada is.
Yeah,
right?
He was so brazen, is the word we use in the English, which comes from the Hebrew word nakash.
Nakash.
Yeah,
Wow.
there's a variation of that word nakash that the word brazen comes from. The word brazen means to be without morals, to be unashamed, to be shameless, just sexually perverted in your speech and conduct. The word brazen, go look at that. But it comes from a Hebrew word which translates to Nachash, which is the word used for the serpent, or the symbolism of Satan himself.
Right, wow.
Yeah. So anyway,
speaking of Howard Stern, Carl, back when the long-term listeners will remember that I used to keep track of Howard Stern's guest list, because believe it or not, he got some pretty big names on there, including Donald Trump. Donald Trump was a regular visitor to the Howard Stern show for quite a while. In fact, a post-election interview, what is one of the things that you can say you regret most about your life? And he said, well, the one thing that comes to mind is going on the Howard Stern show so often. that was one of his major regrets in life, right?
Yeah.
And Stern used to joke when Donald Trump announced his candidacy. He used to say that Donald Trump and I are so close that he will probably give me my own bedroom in the White House.
Yeah.
That's how Howard Stern felt about it. Now Stern can't figure out why Donald Trump won't go anywhere near the Howard Stern show.
Yeah.
But back when all that was going on, and I was paying attention because my satellite radio subscription had the Howard Stern package on it. It doesn't anymore, because I just said, look, folks, I got to stop listening to this. I can't handle this anymore, right? So, but back then he had Bradley Cooper on, and he and Bradley Cooper had a science segment, because Stern asked Cooper, I've heard that one of the things that you're most afraid of is mice. Why are you so afraid of mice? And Cooper said, because mice don't have sphincters. Now, as you know, Carl, there's a lot of science involved here. Science can be very gross at times, right?
It
but
can.
it's still science, what we're talking about here. A lot of science, by the way. So strap on your science beanies now, everybody. And I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, because he says mice don't have sphincters. That means they don't have any control over where they defecate. They just defecate anywhere. They don't have any control over it. I'm thinking, that doesn't sound right to me, that mice don't have sphincters, Carl.
Uh-huh.
Do you think mice have sphincters? I went to Google, and I just Googled mouse sphincter. And sure enough, mice do have sphincters.
Yeah.
It makes total sense, right? I mean, how does a mammal's body function without a sphincter? Anyway, so in fact, I discovered there's all kinds of articles out there showing how scientists have been able to create in a lab mouse sphincters so that they may someday replicate a human sphincter to kind of help out with all those ailments that people suffer from, bowel conditions and so on.
Yeah.
So then I got to doing more deeper research into this whole sphincter business.
More deeper, huh?
More deeper.
Yeah. Okay.
More deeper research. Yeah.
More. Okay, go ahead, man. I'm messing with you. Go ahead.
It's the flu virus.
I know. No, I'm messing with you, man. Go ahead.
More, deeper. Huh?
Yes.
Is that better?
More.
Is that better?
Yes. Research. More research that is even deeper than. All right. Go ahead. go ahead, brother.
So it turns out that mice do have sphincters. And people have sphincters, but we have not just one sphincter, but two sphincters, right? We have an IAS. It's an internal anal sphincter, right? That's where all the food stops. That's where it stops moving through your colon, right? And we have no control over that sphincter. That sphincter does what it does, right? And that sphincter, when the time is right, it allows food to pass from the internal sphincter to the EAS, the external anal sphincter, right? Now, the sphincter is a circular muscle that's kind of shaped like a donut,
right?
And it acts like a gate, right? It opens and it closes, and it opens and it closes. The internal anal sphincter, we have no control over that one. That was done automatically.
Evolution is so smart, isn't it? I mean, evolution just invented this stuff out of a mudslime pit.
Well, wait till you hear this. Wait till you hear just how smart evolution really is.
Okay, good. I can't wait.
Because now the external sphincter, we control that one for the most part, right? In that gap, that few inch gap between the internal anal sphincter and the external anal sphincter is a laboratory, Carl. This is really amazing. People need to research what's going on between that IAS and the EAS, okay? There's a laboratory, or if your name is Dr. Frankenstein, a laboratory,
yes.
Okay? And in between those two sphincter muscles is a laboratory, and samples are being taken from what is being allowed past the internal muscle
right.
in that gap. Samples are being taken, the results of which are sent to your brain, okay? That is how we know if it's a gas, liquid, or solid, okay?
Wow.
Now, if it's a gas, you're able to find a quiet, secluded place and release that gas, right?
Right.
If it's a liquid, you are given a sort of urgent message, and you need to find a bathroom facility pronto.
Yes.
Because otherwise some nasty business is about to happen.
Right.
Don't release it yet,
right.
but find someplace safe where you can release it.
ASAP. Yes. Right. Go ahead.
If it's a solid, then you know that it's a solid, right? For the most part. Now, if you have an accident, now think about this. If you have an accident, you know that you probably should not have released that. You shouldn't have taken that risk. Like, part of you goes, man, I knew I shouldn't have let that go. I just knew it. Now I'm in trouble, right?
Right.
So anyway, the reason you know whether it's a gas, solid, or liquid, and there's other signals, by the way, more complicated than that. There's other signals that it does send to your brain regarding your health. Okay, the health of what's in that pocket there. But the three main points I want people to take away from this is there is a laboratory there. Right. It's an amazing thing.
It is amazing.
It sends results from the samples it takes to your brain to let you know what kind of social condition you now find yourself in.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Like if you're on a date,
yes.
you need to know this information.
You got to know this, yes.
If you're sitting at a table eating dinner with family and friends, you have got to know what's in that space.
Yes.
Mice don't need that information. It's not even that important to them.
So they don't have the laboratory.
They don't have the laboratory. It goes from the internal anal sphincter. They have no control over that circular muscle, and that's why how you know there's a mouse in the house, because you see the droppings, right?
Right.
I mean, it's an amazing study if folks want to look into that lab that we all have between the internal and anal sphincter muscles. It's an amazing thing. And you know, it's like the guy who built Stevenson was his name. He was an engineer, and he's the guy who built the Bell Rock Lighthouse. Okay, it's just off the coast of Ireland, and that lighthouse sits on top of a group of an island that disappears during high tide, and the ships going by, they can't see it. And that thing, in fact, during one storm, that island that gets submerged during high tide wiped out 70 ships during one storm.
Wow.
And this guy, Stevenson, he petitioned the British government to give him the money to build a lighthouse on this thing in the middle of the ocean. It's an amazing thing. And he said about science, the marriage between science and faith, he said, science dispels the superstitions and reveals the glory and majesty of God.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And that's why people hear me talk a lot about how awesome science is.
Yes.
Because God put a laboratory in your colon.
Yes, I mean, it's, you know, but you think about it, Mike, and you started off by saying sometimes science is dirty, not dirty as in, you know, obscene, but just, well, it is, because, I mean, you know, we're talking about human physiology, and there's some of it that's clean, and there's some of it that's, you know, not so clean, but it's all a part of nature and human physiology. And that goes right back to our conversation about male and female physiology. It's the same thing. Now, how does all this stuff happen? How are males and females so different? How do we react so differently to visual stimuli? How did a slime pit know to put a laboratory between the inner sphincter and the outer sphincter? I mean, on and on we could go. We could take one organ like the eye or the heart or the liver or the pancreas and just talk for hours about each individual little organ. How does my toe know that it itches and then it moves to try to scratch itself in my shoe? How does it do? I mean, you know, the things we take for granted, that did not come out of a slime pit, Mike.
No, absolutely not. If evolution is true, there's no need for the social benefits of a laboratory between your two sphincter muscles.
For example,
for that.
That's right, Mike. We've got to take a time out.
The Satanists wanted to install their own tribute, a pagan idol, on the Capitol grounds, right next to the Ten Commandments.
Millions around the planet are witnessing a world in the grasp of sadistic spiritual darkness. This unholy alliance has infected our governments, our religious institutions, and our societies. The world appears to be unraveling. But can the evil behind these dark supernatural forces be defeated? Is everything playing out just as the Bible predicted it will in the final days? At last, you can know the answers to mankind's most urgent questions and learn your destiny among today's events in the new, unprecedented work taking the prophecy world by storm. Gods and Thrones, Nakash, Forgotten Prophecy and the Return of the Elohim by best-selling author, former decorated law enforcement officer, and senior pastor Carl Gallups. This changes everything. Available now wherever fine books are sold.